All right, thank you for the opportunity. You've all been working really hard this week. You won't have realised this, that I was skiving off, but Ozzy Osbourne died this week, the Prince of Darkness. I am your Prince of Darkness, I'm afraid, for the next few minutes anyway. My real message, or our message actually, coming from two different perspectives. You want to give your perspective quickly?
No, you go ahead. You start.
All right. So I'm now a dean of a School of Data Science in the US. And so what I'm really going to tell you is what I've been telling my faculty and graduate students for some time now. And it's not the kind of picture I want to tell, but what it does tell me is our science needs you in various different ways, which I'll explain very briefly, more than ever before.
And I'm now retired. But I'm still affiliated with, I just came on the board of the society here, and I'm also involved in editing a few journals, and I'm a long time, historically I've worked in databases and resources, and it's a way for us to sort of state clearly that our science needs you.
Thanks. So I thought this would be a useful quote. If you've read The Tale of Two Cities, this is exactly how it starts. I'm actually going to read it out because I think it actually speaks to the moment. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. I actually really believe we're in that moment. And we've talked a lot about culture and possibly the need for cultural change. I actually think there's more chance to see that cultural change in all the years I've been doing science than ever before, for all the wrong reasons. But nevertheless, it's there. So I just want to give you a sense of what's going on. And this is a little US-centric, but don't for 1 second think this doesn't trickle down. We talk about, particularly with the infrastructure and the ecosystem around data and so forth, that these things are global. So whatever happens in any one country that's contributing is going to affect others. And so there's two parts to this. The first part on the right-hand side, these histograms, you can't actually necessarily read that, I'm sure, but I'll just quickly summarize. This is taken from the AAAS, the American Association for Advancement of Science dashboard, which is updated whenever something happens that relates to US funding. What you can see is the initial Trump budget, or I should say the White House budget, called for the order of 50+% cut in NSF funds. I don't have NIH, NIH is at the bottom here, so yeah. So that's like over 40% cut. Where we're at after the House has had a look at this is reducing, in the case of NSF, that reduction in budget to the order of 20%. We don't know what the Senate's going to do with it yet. I would encourage you, even though it seems very remote to many of you, to keep an eye on this, because it's ultimately going to trickle down to affect what is going to be possible. And some of the things about it are stunning to me. The fact that there's, when you look at STEM education, they're calling for the NSF essentially to stop funding any form of STEM education. This would be, really catastrophic. There are also, so I told you, Prince of Darkness, sorry. The other part of this is the fellow on the left is my former, well, it's not former, my friend and former president of the University of Virginia, where I am. So the Department of Justice essentially encouraged him to resign. If he didn't resign, they were going to stop all funding to the federal funding to the University of Virginia. This would have also been catastrophic. These, my friends, are the times we find ourselves in academia in the US. That's the perspective I'm bringing, but it clearly, as I've said, it trickles down. Then there are other aspects to this. I think it's important to remain upbeat as much as possible, but the fact is that the 27 institutes and centers that form the NIH that Susan was talking about there, at least within the White House budget, it calls to reduce that quite significantly in numbers. And with the reduction in budgets, all this means is that there will be some fairly significant perturbations, both in money, amounts of money, but also in types of programs and so on. And it even gets more interesting than that. So I would say there's a tale of two futures here. It's the worst of times in the sense that the budget is going to be cut. I'd say the public perception of science is low. The biomedical data and methods ecosystem appears unsustainable. I love what I'm hearing. I'm a big supporter of all the efforts by GBC and others, but I still say my personal view is, and this personal view, without some significant change, it's unsustainable. Academic freedom is under attack, and that's in part why our president was forced to resign. I won't go into that in any detail, but that's part of it. Scientists are leaving the field. We're already starting to see a bit of that. And potential scientists are having second thoughts about joining the field. On the other hand, on the best of times, there's non-US support of science and it's stepping up, and I think that's really important. New funding programs are emerging, and just today, the White House announced their strategy for AI coming up. Now, what that means is anyone's guess. It does call for significant funding in the areas of AI, which would counterbalance some of these losses potentially. On the other hand, there's some things in there I find I haven't had a chance, it just came out, I just saw it for the first time this morning, so I didn't get a chance to peruse it very carefully, but I immediately went to workforce development. As a dean of a school of data science, this is an important thing. The thing that I saw there, the only thing I saw there was workforce development in conjunction with electricians. With the whole idea that, of course, which is not, it's not important by any means, that with the increased need for the electricity grid, we're going to need more electricians. And we definitely need more electricians. Maybe not in your parts of the world, but certainly where I'm from, getting an electrician is not easy. So I'm not actually disputing that. But if that's what's driving AI workforce development, I think we're in a bit of trouble. I think certainly a lot of the science that's moving around is moving to other institutions outside of the US, which is just as valuable. So, you know, that's all good. And I would say scientists are responding to the movement. And I actually think this is a really critical point because I had the opportunity, I actually chair the GBC Scientific Advisory Committee. And I got to listen in recently on the GBCR forum, which is all the leaders of the GBCRs, talking about the situation they find themselves in. And for the first time, I was actually hearing the ideas that would normally have not surfaced at all about how to monetize and how to work with the private sector, for example, or with other sectors to mitigate some of these aspects that they feel that's definitely going to be forthcoming. So in some ways, to me, that is the beginning of a cultural change. Obviously, we want to preserve all the kinds of things we've been hearing about in these sessions, but at the same time, there has to be a sense of realism, and that's my personal view, of course. And then, of course, AI is a complete and utter game changer in all of this, and how that actually ultimately impacts this future. Hopefully, it will be very much in a positive sense. So what can you do? Did you take your slide out?
No.
Oh, all right. I guess it's coming. All right. So what can you do?
That one? This one?
No, that wasn't yours.
Oh.
Yours.
Oh, my slide is after.
Oh, okay. You can see we're really well coordinated.
We've done lots of slides.
Yeah,
We changed the slides this morning.
Yeah, well, the problem with doing everything in the open is anyone can come in and change what you're about to talk about, which appears to be what has happened here. But anyway, not to worry. It's nothing like doing things on the fly. So I think it's really important for you as graduate students upwards to, and actually even before that, to advocate for your science. And I think doing that in some different ways, these are things I'm telling my faculty and graduate students. So I think you need to, of course, you need to keep publishing papers like you've always done, but you also need to write for different kinds of media. I think you need to reach different types of audiences with the work that you do. And you can do that through various ways, op-eds, blogs, and so on. The problem with all of this, of course, is, and Wikipedia pages, social media, the problem is that the reward system doesn't actually favor you doing that. And I think this is another example where I feel that we might see some movement in cultural change to start respecting some of these things and measuring them and doing things with them where they can, their true value can be perceived. And I think speaking to different audiences beyond the ones that you're in your own bubble would actually be very valuable as well. Get involved with legitimate advocacy groups and scientific societies and so forth. Although, I think that I don't know how to do anything else, but it's not clear to me that the impact, at least within government, of those sort of the societies is that as great as it should be, which is unfortunate. At least I speak for the US in this case. And then, of course, go beyond funding agencies and speak directly to your government representatives. It's great to speak to your program officers, but their hands are tied to some extent. So these are things you can do. There's your slide.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to mention in the context of our, Phil mentioned speaking to societies. In the context of our society, the society itself will not take any political positions, but the members of the society are free to do what they want, of course. And so an example of that is last year, the society didn't want to take any position on the meetings in Canada. They didn't want us to take a position. The society didn't want to take a position on land acknowledgement for First Nations and things like that. But they allowed me in the introduction of the conference to speak to that. And so there's certain things a society can do and there's certain things it can't do, but I think it's important to make them aware. I think for the societies and the presidents of societies and so forth to be aware of the issues. And our current president is very much aware of this issue. And so I just wanted to make that point.
Thanks. CWL coordinator. I knew it.
Very important.
What can you do? So I would say, this is further things you can do, is apply your intellect to the business of science. Help define new funding models. The workshop that Guy mentioned that we're having in Montreal in August is really an effort to do that kind of thing. And I think these kind of things are going to be very important. Pursue public-private partnerships. I won't go into that in the context of what we're doing, but I'm in a public university which actually has quite a lot of constraints about what and how we interact with the private sector. I'm in the throes of forming a 501c3, which is a non-profit organization that's actually it's being created to support the university, but operates outside of the university so that we can get around some of these issues around the ability to operate with the private sector. And I think these kinds of developments, some will hopefully succeed, some will fail, but it's really alternative types of thinking. I'm encouraging my faculty to be far more entrepreneurial than perhaps would otherwise be the case. And that's something that I've certainly pursued myself, so I'm a big personal supporter of that. I've formed 4 companies, none have been successful, but there you go. And so start companies. Because sooner or later, some will be successful. Research, I think that there's no question, we've all, in some way or another, chased the money. I know no one wants to speak to it that way, but that's basically what's happening, right? You see a funding call and you go after it and you're chasing the money, but hopefully that funding call aligns with the work that you really wanted to do anyway. However, one needs to be, I think, start to be being a little more flexible, given the likelihood that there's going to be changes in the types of funding streams available. So it's really about diversification, and thinking about working and looking for other sorts of funding, as well as refocusing your efforts. And so with that, I think we're ready for the discussion, which is about everything we've heard this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. So now we're to, well, first of all, let's